All right, so I'm here with my friend Darren.
Hey, Kyle.
Hey, how you doing?
Great.
We're gonna do like 10 questions, 10 tech questions about forks.
I'll do my best.
Okay. What does offset mean, and why do people talk about a shorter or longer offset? What are they talking about?
Okay, so you have like the steer tube comes down,
Okay.
and then there, if you draw a straight line down through there, and then the amount where the axle sits out in front of that, that's your offset.
Okay, and what's like a standard offset for you guys on a 27.5 fork?
44.
And do you know what 29 is?
29 we offer 51 or 44.
Okay, and a shorter offset puts more weight on the front wheel, correct?
So the shorter offset will change the trail, the amount of trail that you have. So the amount of it's like you can almost picture it like a contact patch of sorts. Mm-hmm. And so the longer the offset, it decreases that, speeds up the steering, and the shorter increases that, and it kind of makes it steer slower, like in a high-speed situation.
Yeah. Bit. Okay. All right, another question. Why do companies offer different stanchion sizes for different models?
So there's all kinds of different riding, right? So like somebody could be a cross-country rider to a full-on downhill, dirt jumpers, enduro. And so the chassis will set the tone for what that intended purpose is.
Okay.
And like right now, we're moving into like the cross-country trail, the shorter travel, say maybe up to 140 millimeter travel. We're going towards 34s, like kind of 32s are still in the mix, but it's trending more towards a little bit bigger stanchion.
And a bigger stanchion gives you?
It's stiffness.
Okay.
So like you get better steering, or like when you're braking, you'll get less flex out of the fork. So it helps the rider stay more precise. And so as you keep building up, we get ultimately our largest ones we think our sweet spot for like the most aggressive, like Rampage or World Cup downhill, is a 38.
Okay.
So, and then we now have e-mountain bikes in the equation too, and so you have the added weight of batteries, motors, heavier duty frames, and so those really are begging for a stiffer fork to handle the extra weight they have.
Is there any reason why you wouldn't see like a 38 mil stanchion on a cross-country bike? Would it just be too rigid?
It's too heavy mostly, that rider is wouldn't accept the weight that brings with it. So, they're going to need like 32s to 34s.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, another one. If you had to ride a fork with no compression damping or no rebound damping, which would you choose?
Well, the compression is going to come out of the spring mainly.
Okay.
So like the spring rate sets the tone of the fork like more than anything, I think.
The rest is fine tuning.
Yeah, and so you'd be lost without your rebound damping.
Okay.
Yeah.
So another one is, what are bushings and what are they for? What are they made of?
So bushings they're inside the fork, and they're in this lower part, and so the upper part, the stanchion, slides up and down it, so it creates a smooth surface, and then you have to manage the tolerance so you don't have any wiggle back and forth.
But if it's too tight,
it's too tight, then
right?
it's not going to move right. So we make our entry-level forks. They're actually made out of a plastic material. So doesn't have the durability of like a metal back bushing, but they're super easy to change. And for that level rider, like the shops can change them in really a matter of minutes if they get worn out. And it keeps the cost down.
Yeah.
So like, you might have a bike in a bike shop that's like $500 to $1,000, and they'll use that kind of a product.
But then on the premium ones,
so once you go above that and the rider's skill set starts coming in and they're riding harder and more often, they need a metal back bushing, and that could be made like of steel on the outside or aluminum if you're trying to keep the weight down, and the inside then is like a Teflon material. And a lot of those will have a slot in so that the lubricant can, like on the higher end ones will have they get in and keep things running smooth.
How big are bushings? Do they take up the whole fork chassis?
There tends to be one here and a little bit further down, and so that's where you have a stanchion overlap. So like the stanchion has to go to at least below that one.
Okay.
And then
it gives it some stiffness too, right?
And they're all replaced. They all are eventually wear and tear items, so they can be replaced.
Okay.
So.
Another one is, why don't we see downhill bikes using single crowns?
They need absolute stiffness and strength. Okay. It's just the weight isn't of a concern. Okay. They need just all things down. It has to be strong and super stiff, and that's what the dual crown's bringing.
It seems like we kind of hit a limit of like 180 mil travel for a single crown. Is that where you guys generally see like it go from a single to a double crown?
I think it eventually will push out further than that with stuff that's going on in e-mountain bike.
Okay. So you might see a longer, even a longer travel.
Yeah.
Okay. So what are the purpose of volume spacers on an air fork? So I know you guys have like a system where you can put in additional volume spacers that kind of clip into place.
Yep.
What is the purpose of that? What does that do?
So you got all kinds of people who could be riding that bike, right? Somebody could be like 125 pounds, the other guy could be 225, and you have all different riding styles. So that just allows any of those riders to fine tune whether they have like a more linear spring rate, so it stays the same as it's progressing out.
So like it's basically if you had like, if it took 100 pounds to compress it for 1 inch, then it would be 100 pounds, 200 pounds, 300 pounds.
Yeah.
And then on a...
As you keep adding those spacers, then
it gets more progressive.
Yeah, it makes it more progressive as you go up. And you can get to a point where it's just like too harsh on the bottom out. But you can also adjust your pressure, so you could maybe lower your pressure a little bit by adding the more tokens and have good small bump, but still not ding the thing to the bottom, like, you know, at the circus when you hit it and it goes ding. So.
Okay, cool. So when you guys offer, I know there's a new chassis that has like a coil spring, like the Xeron.
Yeah.
And it's the same kind of chassis as the Oron and Ion, which is an air fork. When you guys put a coil spring in that fork, do you have to tune the damper differently because of the difference in spring curve?
We don't on that particular model. It's the same damper, no matter if you have the coil or the air version.
Okay.
So the air one is just going to be more progressive. Okay. But there's a section of the market that likes the feel of coil. Like they're exceptionally good on small bump. It just doesn't have the ramp up at the end that an air spring does. And
then you usually on a coil would run a little bit lighter rebound tune, right? Because it's going to be at the bottom, it's not fully compressed quite as hard.
You could, yeah. Okay. Again, it's rider preference on how they want to do that.
And then let's see if I forgot any on here. Okay, another one. What is a negative spring? And I know I've heard about negative coils and negative airs. What is that? What does that do?
Yeah, if you didn't have a negative spring, like if you went, like say off of jump, the fork would just kind of go thunk the bottom. So it's balancing a relationship of how the fork returns to its full extension. And so it gently gets back there, and instead of...
So it kind of reduces the initial pressure it takes to move
the fork. Yeah. And then we have forks now, like we have some that have coil. Most of our forks have a coil negative. And those, like if the rider is of like a real heavy rider, we have a stiffer spring in that coil negative.
Because there's more air in the positive.
They might go up to like 150 PSI at maximum, you know. And then on the flip side, if you've got somebody who's like, say, under 135 pounds, we have a lighter spring. And then there's the medium one to kind of take care of people like between that range up to, say, 200 pounds. So.
And then the nice thing about negative coil is you don't have to order a new shaft size for changing travel.
Yeah, we have a little spacer you can just add or reduce those and change the travel on a given fork. So.
And then on a negative air, you have to order a specific shaft size for each travel that you want.
Yeah.
Okay, but negative air equalizes itself too, right? So it's kind of, that's a positive of that. Sometimes.
Yeah. So if you think about like if you're in the bike shop and you're selling somebody a bike, again, there's different weight ranges. The shop's just going to have to pump it to the correct sag level.
Yeah.
And then it'll just feel good for whoever's riding it.
Cool. That's awesome. That's some really good info. Yeah, I think we killed it.
Awesome.
Good job.
Thanks.